Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Alexander, and I work in the Office of Student Financial Aid and Scholarship at the University of Florida. And before we begin, I want to say congratulations and welcome to Gator Nation. As you know, and as we know, you work hard to get here. The application, the essays, the class, the exams, it led you to this moment. You're now admitted as a student at the University of Florida, and this is something to be proud of. And today, we're going to talk about financial aid and what comes next as you prepare to start your journey at UF. I'm going to turn off my camera so we can focus on the presentation. So before we jump into details, let me give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. And we will start with a quick review of financial aid basics and some of the resources that may be available to help you pay for college. Then we're going to talk about receiving financial aid, an important step you need to complete before your aid can be dispersed. After that, we will discuss how to maintain your financial aid and stay eligible throughout your time here at UF. And one of the most important part of today's presentation, because receiving aid is only one part of the process, but keeping it is just as important. We also was going to spend some time looking at One.UF, which is one of the most important tools you will use as a student. We will show you where to find your financial aid information, important notifications, and items that may require your attention. And of course, we're going to leave time at the end to answer any question you may have. However, if a question comes during the presentation, please feel free to post in the chat, and one of my colleagues will be happy to assist you and answer all your questions. By the end of the presentation, my goal is for you to have a better understanding of how financial aid works at UF and feel more confident about the next steps in your transition to becoming a Gator. Let's start, take a moment to review your journey that brought you here. One of the first steps in college is completing the free application for Federal Student Aid, better known as FAFSA. It's right here, FAFSA. The FAFSA is important because it determines your eligibility for many types of financial aid, including need-based grant and federal student loans and federal works study. If you're starting at UF in Summer B, you should have completed 25-26 FAFSA application. Keep this in mind. If you have not completed yet the 25-26 FAFSA application, please do so as soon as possible. In fact, you can complete it right after today's presentation. This is important you complete the 25-26 FAFSA application as soon as possible because the deadline is June 30. You also want to complete the 26-27 FAFSA application for the upcoming fall and spring semester. So if you start on this Summer B, you need to complete the 25-26, and the 26-27 will start applying on this fall. Another important application is the Florida Financial Aid Application, or FFAA. Many of you already completed, especially if you're expecting to receive state aid programs such as Bright Futures. But if you have not completed that application, the deadline to submit the FFAA is this August 31st. So if you still need to complete it, or if you need to update to include the University of Florida, you still have time. But I'll be honest with you, if you have not completed one of those applications, just anything related to financial aid, sooner is always better. When you stop thinking about what you already accomplished throughout this journey, you have been doing a lot. You have been admitted to UF. You have completed important financial aid application, and many of you have already received a financial aid offer. So now the question becomes, what's next? What's next? That really what today's presentation is all about. Because as you prepare to begin classes, it's important to understand your college expenses, the different financial aid programs available to you, and the requirement that comes with for receiving financial aid. Our goal is to give you the information you need to make informed financial decisions, avoid surprises, and start your UF journey with confidence. Now that we have reviewed some of the steps that you already completed, let's talk about one of the most important concepts in financial aid, understanding what college actually costs and how we calculate that cost. As you know, attending college costs money. So before we talk about financial aid, we need first to understand those costs. Every institution publish a list of education-related expenses that student may incur each year. This is called the cost of attendance. So the next question becomes, what exactly is included in the cost of attendance? Well, let's take a look. The cost of attendance, or COA, is an estimate of what it may cost to attend college for one academic year. It includes tuition and fees, books, supplies, housing, meal, transportation, and personal expenses. The COA is updated annually, assigned to each student, and may vary based on residency status, academic year, and enrollment level. There are two types of costs within the cost of attendance. If you see here, the direct cost is like the tuition, the fees, and sometimes housing. And there's also the indirect cost that includes food, transportation, and personal expenses. Let me give you a simple example so we can picture these concepts. Imagine that you're renting your first apartment. So you're renting your first apartment. The rent is a required cost. If you don't pay the rent, then you don't get the apartment. So that's similar of direct costs, tuition and fees. But there are other expenses that depends on your choices, such as groceries, furniture, eating out, streaming services, transportation. Those costs you can control. Well, those are indirect costs. Both concept, direct, indirect costs, that is the component of the cost of attendance. So college works the same way. Some costs are billed directly by UF, while others depends on your lifestyle and spending decision. Then what the cost of attendance helps to show, it's UF estimate of what it may cost to attend school for one academic year. So just one academic year. For the 26-27 academic year, the estimated cost of attendance for a Florida resident is about $25,770. One more time. The amount is $25,770. But remember, this all just estimate, and that's only for fall and spring semester combined. This estimate assumes 15 credits per hour per semester and may change after drop out. And if you notice this slide, one of the things that many families surprise is that the largest part of the cost of attendance is often not tuition, it's living expenses like housing, food, transportation, and other everyday expenses make up a large portion of the total cost. It is important you keep in mind your cost of attendance because it helps you plan, and it also helps our office determine how much financial aid we can offer. Your financial aid cannot exceed your cost of attendance. And as we review it, and as you review the cost of attendance, you may ask yourself, can my income and aid cover these expenses? Are there more affordable options available? Those and other questions are great to ask as you begin planning for college. And if you'd like to see more details breakdown, then you can visit our website. Now that we understand the cost of attendance, let's take a closer look how students and families actually pay for those costs. Now, this is an important question. How do I pay for these expenses? Well, there are several ways to pay your university charges, and many of them are managed through the University Bursar's Office. Let's talk about a few ones. One of the most common option is the Florida Prepaid. Florida Prepaid is managed by the bursar and it's matched using your social security number. It means that as long as there is an active Florida Prepaid plan associated with your information, it will be billed automatically at the beginning of each semester. You don't have to submit any documentation. The only thing you need to make sure is that on your One.UF and your Florida Prepaid website, you have the Social Security, and technically the bursar's office will take care of the rest. In addition, some students may have a third-party sponsor. This could be an employer, a government agency, scholarship organization, or another sponsor that agrees to pay some of your educational expenses. In those situations, students must submit documentation from the sponsoring organization that specify what expenses will be covered and for what period of time. And keep this in mind, the documentation must be received by the bursar's office before the end of the first week of classes. Students and families can also pay out of pocket. Payment can be made online through One.UF using an electronic check, debit card, or credit card. If you prefer to pay in person, the bursar's offices accept personal check, cashier checks, and money orders. Bursar's offices do not accept cash, so no cash. Payments can be mailed, delivered in person, or placed in the 24-hour drop-off outside the bursar's offices in Chrysler Hall. If you're paying by check, please make sure your name and UFID are included so the payment is applied to the correct student account. In addition to that, of course, another option is financial aid, which is what we're going to focus on next. Another way to help pay for college is financial aid itself. What is financial aid? Financial aid is money that helps students cover the cost of attending college. It may come from the federal government, the state of Florida, the University of Florida, or private donors and organizations. Most federal aid programs require FAFSA. So one more time, if you have not completed your FAFSA, be sure to do so as soon as possible. And when we talk about financial aid, there's four main types of financial aid, and they fall into two larger groups. The first one is called give aid. Give aid. This is type of aid that usually students like the most because it's money that does not have to be paid. Give aid includes grants and scholarship. So here's something to remember. If you receive a grant or a scholarship, do you have to pay it back? Well, the answer is no. The second group is called self-help aid. Self-help aid. This group includes the student loans and student employment. Now that we understand the big picture, let's take a look at a few examples of each type of financial aid. Today, we're going to focus on scholarship, specifically in Bright Futures, and we're going to talk about federal work study and student loan. One of the most common scholarships our students receive is Bright Futures. Bright Futures is a state program for Florida residents. Students complete the Florida Financial Aid Application, or FFAA, and as long as they continue to meet the renewal requirement, they can use the scholarship during the fall, spring, and even summer. And only for state programs, specifically Bright Futures, FAFSA is not required to receive Bright Futures. To keep Bright Futures, students must maintain the required GPA, successfully complete the enrollment credit hours, and remain enrolled at least half-time. I'm going to say one more time. To receive Bright Futures, students must enroll at least 6 credit hours. Any term, fall, spring, and summer, as long as you enroll in 6 credit hours, that open you the opportunity to receive Bright Futures on that term. There's 2 levels of Bright Futures. The first one is the Florida Academic Scholars. Florida Academic Scholars. This award covers 100% of tuition and applicable fees. At UF, that's currently $212.71 per credit. That means if you want to know how much you will receive from Bright Futures during that term, just multiply $212.71 by the amount of credits you enroll, and that's the amount of money you're going to receive from Bright Futures. As you can see, Bright Futures is an incredible resource. But like all financial aid program, it comes with responsibility. This means that to renew it, students must maintain a 3-point GPA and successfully complete credit hours attempted. Understanding those requirements, you can avoid surprises later. Let's take a look at the second level of Bright Futures and how its requirement compared to the Florida Academic Scholars. The second level is the Florida Medallion Scholar. The awards cover 75% of tuition applicable fees. At UF, that's currently $159.53 per credit. Same thing, if you want to know how much Bright Futures will disperse if you are in medallion level, just multiply 155.53 by the amount of credits you enroll, and that will be the amount of money you're going to receive from Bright Futures. To renew the scholarship, students must maintain 2.75 GPA and successfully complete the credit hours they attempted. One important thing to remember regarding Bright Futures is that regardless of which Bright Futures level you receive, you're responsible for the classes you enroll in. And this is an important question. What happens if you drop a class after the dropout period? What happens? Well, the answer is that you will be required to repay the Bright Futures funding that was used for those drop credits. It means that if you drop a class after the dropout period, no matter the reason, you have to repay back on Bright Futures. There's more information, but I just wanna let you know this information because this is very important. If in the future you need to drop a class, before you do so, it is important that you talk with your advisor and understand the financial impact before dropping a course. Another financial aid programs you may see on your offer is Federal Work Study. Federal Work Study is a need-based program. That means that FAFSA is required and student must be enrolled at least half-time to be eligible. If you qualified, you will see a Federal Work Study award as part of your financial aid package. From there, if you see your Federal Work Study in your financial aid package, what you need to do next is you can search for available student assistant position through UF Jobs website and apply directly to the position that interests you. If you're hired, you can typically work up to 20 hours per week while classes are in session. Then how will you get paid? The answer is that you will earn a paycheck every other week based on the hours you work, and that money is paid directly to you. And just to be honest, like one of the best benefits of work study is not just a paycheck, it's the opportunity that builds connection. You will gain experience and work alongside faculty and staff who can help you grow professionally during your time at UF. Another type of financial aid that many students use is federal student loans. Like Federal Work Study, federal student loan require FAFSA, and student must be enrolled in at least 6 credit hours to be eligible. There are two main types of federal direct student loans: subsidized loans and unsubsidized loan. Both are borrowed, and those loans, the federal subsidized and the federal unsubsidized, are borrowed in the student name. And keep this in mind. What is the biggest difference between the two? Well, the subsidized loan does not generate interest. This is a need-based financial aid. It will not generate interest where you are in school at least half-time. An unsubsidized loan is different. It begins generating interest while you are in school, even though you're not required to make payments yet. The good news is that with both loans, repayments do not begin until 6 months after you graduate, leave school, or drop below half-time enrollment. Now, of course, you are more than welcome to make any payments early if you choose. In fact, making payments on a subsidized loan while you're in school can help you reduce the amount of interest that builds over time. If you're offered a federal student loan, you will see it as part of your financial aid package in One.UF. You will have the option to accept the full amount. You can reduce the amount or you can decline it. That is important you understand those points because just because a loan is offered, it does not mean you have to accept all of it. If you decide to accept a loan, there's 2 additional steps that you need to complete at studentaid.gov. The first one is the entrance counseling statement, which explains your rights and responsibility as a borrower. The second one is the master promissory note, often called the MPN, which is the legal agreement you sign before receiving the loan. Once those steps are complete, your loan can be dispersed. Sometimes student loans are not enough to cover all of the student educational expenses. When that happens, then families may want to consider a Parent Plus loan. What is that? It is a federal loan that parents of dependent on the graduate student can apply to help cover educational expenses. Like most federal aid programs, a FAFSA must be on file first. However, unlike student loans, the Parent Plus loan is borrowed in the parent's name, and the parent is responsible for repayment. Parents can apply for a specific amount or, if eligible, up to the student cost of attendance after other financial aid is considered. Once parents apply for a Parent Plus loan, the application needs to be completed at studentaid.gov. That is the website, studentaid.gov, and approval is based on parents' credit history. Like unsubsidized loan, interest begin generating while the student is enrolled. If approved, the Parent Plus loan can be a helpful resource for families who need additional funding beyond the student financial aid package. And one important note is that starting this July 1st, 2026, there's a new Parent Plus loan annual limit. So the Parent Plus loan will be subject to an annual borrowing limit up to $20,000 per student, and a lifetime limit of $65,000 per student. Those are important things to remember, as the Parent Plus loan is just one of many tools available to help families bridge the gap between college cost and available financial aid. We'll talk about federal student loans, but some students and families may also consider private loans. And private loans are offered by banks, credit unions, and other private lenders. Unlike federal student loans, these loans are not part of the federal financial aid system. This means that if you're considered a private loan, it is important to do your research and compare your options carefully. There's something we want us to share that the University of Florida does not recommend specific lenders and does not assist with private loans application. However, a student can use Elm Select, that is an external website that allow you to compare participating lenders and review available loan products. Before choosing a lender, let me encourage you to ask a few important questions. What are the eligibility requirements? What interest rate am I being offered? Are there fees associated with the loans? And what happens if I need to postpone payments after graduation? And perhaps most importantly, have I read the fine prints? Remember, a loan is borrowed money that must be repaid with interest. Keep that in mind. If you use wisely, loans can be a helpful tool to help pay for college. The key is understanding exactly what you're borrowing before you sign. The more informed you are today, the better prepared you will be tomorrow. In addition to that, now that we have talked about federal aid, state aid, UF scholarship, those are not the only source of funding available. There are also many outside scholarships, and we always encourage students to spend more time looking for them. A great place to start is your community. Any nonprofit organization. Check with local organization, community groups, foundation, and even your parents' employer. You should also explore college and departmental websites, along with the scholarship search engine. The UF scholarship search engine is available through the Student Financial Aid website. There, on the scholarship search engine, you can search for opportunity based on your major, class standing, GPA, and other criteria. Now, I'll be honest with you, scholarship searching takes time. It's not always easy, but students who search consistently and applied often are usually the students who find opportunities. But we need to be cautious. Be careful of scholarship scam. If someone asks you to pay for scholarship information or a scholarship application or guarantees that you'll receive money, that's a red flag. You don't have to pay for a scholarship application. If you receive an outside scholarship, please make sure that you report it in One.UF. And if a scholarship check is mailed to UF, it should be sent directly to our office. This is the address. The check needs to be sent to our office. Checks also can be delivered in person to Crusher Hall or placed in the 24-hour drop box. Just make sure that the student's name and UFID are included so we can apply the funds to the correct amount. And every scholarship matters. Whether it's 500 or 5,000, it all help reduce what you may need to borrow and brings you one step closer to graduation with less debt. So far, we have talked about college costs, the different types of financial aid available, and various ways students and families can pay for those college. Now, let's talk about the next steps. How you actually receive your financial aid. After all, being offered financial aid is one thing. Making sure it gets dispersed successfully is another. So let's walk through what needs to happen before your aid can be applied to your student account and, if eligible, refunded to you. Once you're admitted, your FOBS is completed, and you have met the requirement for programs like Bright Futures and other scholarship, you will receive a financial aid offer. You can view your financial aid offer on One.UF. This is where you'll see all your cost of attendance along with all the financial aid you have been offered. I know you already been packaged, but for the following years, as an example, the 27-28 academic year, fall and spring financial aid offer are typically available in late summer. As you know, you have been packaged for summer, but for future summer, the financial aid package are usually posted in late spring after your summer enrollment has been confirmed. When you receive your financial aid package, take some time to review it carefully. Don't just look the total amounts or the dollar amount. Make sure you understand the requirements associated with each award. Because one thing that surprised families, do all financial aid programs have the same requirements? The answer is no. For example, federal need-based grant may have different eligibility requirement than scholarship like Bright Futures. That's why it is important you to understand what is required to receive and renew each type of aid. Once you receive your financial aid package, it's important to remember that not every award automatically renews each year. Some scholarship and grants are awarded one academic year at a time and may not be guaranteed in future year. That's why it is important to understand your renewal requirement and think ahead about how you will cover your educational expenses in future terms. Now let's pause for a second. Think about this question. Could your financial aid package look different next year? Well, the answer is yes. Things like your enrollment status, academic program, major changes, and other eligibility factors can affect your financial aid package from year to year. It's also important you to pay attention to your enrollment after classes begin. If your enrollment changes after the dropout period, then your financial aid eligibility may change as well. In some cases, your award needs to be adjusted and you'll receive a notification if that happens. One final reminder, if you receive an outside scholarship, please report it as soon as possible. Remember, there's a limit of financial aid that you're eligible to receive. If you anything that exceed your limit, then you will have to repay back. So please don't wait until the semester already underway and report any outside scholarship. Reporting outside scholarship early help us review your aid package and make any necessary adjustment and avoid delays later in the term. Now, let's talk about how and when you actually receive your financial aid. Keep this in mind. Do you receive your financial aid on the first day of classes? In most cases, the answer is no. Financial aid is typically disbursed after the dropout period each semester. The dropout period is the time where a student can make changes, add or drop a class. Once the dropout deadline passes, your enrollment is reviewed and your financial aid eligibility is finalized. About a week later, you have begun disbursing financial aid. Let me give you this specific example. If you start this summer B, the dropout period ends on June 30. This means that approximately 1 week after June 30, that's when we start disbursement and your financial aid will be applied to the charges. So what happens when your aid is disbursed? Well, there's two scenarios. Let's talk about the first scenario. If you notice here, there's financial aid, but there's more charges than financial aid, which means that after the financial aid is applied to the student account, there will be an excess balance. This means that payment is required. So let's think about the second scenario. If you see here, there's more financial aid than college expenses. This means that if there's more money left over after university charges have been paid, that remaining balance is refunded. Yes, it's refunded directly to you through direct deposit. And those funds can be used for education expenses such as housing, food, books, transportation, and other costs related to attending college. Here's something important to remember. How can you make sure that refund reach you without delays? The answer is simple. Log in into One.UF early, complete any required permission and authorization, and please make sure your banking information is accurate and up to date. And here's an important reminder for students living off campus. Once your refund is sent to you, then you're responsible for managing those funds. UF does not automatically pay your rent, groceries, and other personal expenses if you live off campus. That'll be your responsibility. This means that budgeting becomes very, very important. And think about this way. Your refund may need to last for several months. So just be mindful and be careful you manage those funds. And the easiest will be to cover your expenses throughout that semester. That's the easiest way to budget. That's why tracking your spending and planning ahead can make a big difference in reducing financial stress during college. One important thing to remember is that not every expense included in your cost of attendance is billed directly by UF. For example, the university may not bill you for things like clothing, personal expenses, transportation, or certain living expenses. Some students may receive a refund after their financial aid is applied to their account. And many students realize this. What should you do with the refund? The answer is use it wisely. Financial aid is intended to help cover education expenses such as tuition, transportation, and other costs associated attending college. Instead of thinking about using that refund as an extra money and buy a phone, a car, or whatever things, add money that help you to support you throughout this semester. That's why budgeting is so important. So as you notice here, save for a rainy day, make room for fun, set financial aid goals, track your funds. The more intentional you are with your money today, the fewer financial surprises you'll face later in the semester. Now we're going to talk about maintaining eligibility. This is very important. Let's talk about something that affects every student who receives financial aid. Satisfactory academic progress, also known as SAP. The good news is that SAP is not about being perfect. It's about making steady progress toward your degree. So understanding this requirement early can help you make informed decisions about dropping classes, withdrawing from courses, repeating classes, or making changes to your academic plan. So what exactly does SAP measure? Well, it looks at three things. The first is your GPA. Undergraduate student must maintain a UF a GPA at least 2.0. It's not one bad test or one difficult semester that defines you. What matters is your academic progress over time. Second, SAP looks at how many classes you successfully complete. Most of the graduate students must complete at least 67% of all attempted credit hours. Let me put that on another way. If you register for classes, you are expected to successfully complete most of them. Because financial aid is designed to help students make progress toward a degree, the course completion is an important part of the progress. Third, SAP looks at how long it takes you to complete your degree. This is called the maximum time frame requirement. For most undergraduate students, financial aid eligibility continues until you reach 180 attempted credit hours. This means that the attempted hours, that includes not just completed classes, that includes also withdrawals, failed course, and some repeated course. That's why it is important to think carefully before making academic decisions that could affect your progress. Now, what happens if you're not meeting SAP requirements? Well, if that happens, you'll receive a notification through your UF email account. You can also view your SAP status directly in One.UF after final grades have been posted. And remember, you're not expected to figure all this by your own, okay? You're not alone in this process. We're here to support you and we're here to advise you what is going to be the next step if for some reason in the future you are not meeting SAP. Another important part of maintaining your financial aid eligibility is completing any requirement that appears on One.UF. One thing that surprised family, have you checked your to-do list recently? It is important you to do so because your to-do list is one of the most important sections in One.UF because it tells you if there's any action you need to take to complete before financial aid can be processed or dispersed. One of the common requirements is something that we call verification. Verification is a federal progress that reviews a student FAFSA's information to confirm that the information reported is accurate. Being selected for verification does not mean that you have done anything wrong. It simply means that additional documentation is needed before your aid can be finalized. If you're selected, you will see a verification requirement on your One.UF to-do list. At UF, verification is handled through a third party called ProEd. You will need to submit the requested document directly to them. So directly to them, once they review all the documents, our office is notified and can continue processing your financial aid. If you accept a federal student loan, you will need to complete the interest counseling statement and master promissory note at studentaid.gov. If you have not completed those steps, you will see that reminder on their to-do list. The good news is all of these requirements can be found in one place, your One.UF to-do list. That's why one of the best habits you can develop as a new student is checking One.UF and your UF email regularly. The faster you complete the requested item, the smoother your financial aid process will be. Now, I want you to come back to one of the most important part of financial aid process, the FAFSA. Most financial aid programs require FAFSA, as you know, and it's important to remember that completing the FAFSA is not just one-time task. If you want to be considered for federal aid, you must complete FAFSA every year. Another thing to keep in mind is that FAFSA use what we call prior tax years information. For example, For the 26-27 academic year, you need to use the 2024 tax return. All right. But what if your family situation looks very different today than it did then? Maybe there's been a loss of income, a change in employment, or another significant financial aid circumstances. If that's the case, don't assume that FAFSA tells the whole story. UF offers financial aid revisions and appeal options that may allow us to review your current circumstances. Information about those processes can be found in our financial aid website, and our office can help you guide through the next steps. One final reminder: enrollment matters. This is important because most financial aid requires students be enrolled at least half time, which most of the graduate student means at least 6 credits per hour. As you're registering for classes, please make sure you understand the enrollment requirements associated with your financial aid. The good news is that nearly everything we have discussed today can be found on the Student Financial Aid and Scholarship website. So if you have questions that come up later, you have a great resource available to help you to find the answer. Now, we're almost at the end of the presentation. But before we wrap up, there's one financial resource I want you to highlight because it's going to be one of the most important tools you will use at UF students. It's One.UF. Throughout today's presentation, we'll talk about financial aid offer, your to-do list, enrollment requirement, different topics. The good news is that all of that information can be found in one place. And keep this in mind. What's one of the easiest ways to avoid delays with your financial aid? The answer is simple. Check One.UF regularly. Many of the requirements we have discussed today will appear there first, and the sooner you review your account and complete any request items, the smoother your financial aid process will be. Now, let's take briefly a quick look of some of the information and tools available on One.UF. One.UF is one of the most important tools you use as a UF student. This is like a central hub for managing both your academic and financial information. Through One.UF, you will register for classes, you will be able to view your class schedule, check your grades, review your account charges, and access your financial aid package. Many of things that we have discussed today can be found there. One important item you will see on One.UF is Authorized Information Release Form. And there's something to remember. How many of you expect your parents to help you manage financial aid while you're in college? If that's the case, you need to authorize. If you like UF staff to speak with parents about financial aid, billing, and other information, you will need to complete the Authorized Information Release form and add them as an authorized contact. Now, let's focus on what happens when you log in on your One.UF. Let me just zoom in real quick. Now, this is the homepage. This page gives you a quick overview of one of the most important information you will need as a student. In the upper left corner, as you see here, you will see action items. This is an area where you check regularly because that includes hold, to-dos, and important notification. Let's start briefly talking about the holds. This is something that it may prevent you from completing certain action at the university. Depending on type of the hold, it could affect your ability to register for classes or receiving financial aid. That's why it is important students to address hold as soon as they appear. For example, if there's a past due balance, you may see a hold explaining the issue and providing instruction how to clear it. Now you'll see here their to-do list. This is where you find any outstanding requirement that needs your attention. For example, if you accept student loans, you may see requirements to complete interest counseling statement or your master promissory note. Completing this item promptly can help you prevent delays in receiving your financial aid. You will also notice an information section. It's going to be right here. That will show you important announcements and reminders. These may include things like FAFSA availability, financial aid updates, or other important university notice. One thing to remember is that action items come from many different departments across campus, so it is important to review them carefully and understand what action, if any, is required. Now, on the right side of the page, you will find the on-campus section. This is where you can find and view charge posted to your student account, such as tuition, fees, health insurance, and other charges. This also where you can sign up for direct deposit or update your banking information. Since financial aid refunds are issued through direct deposit, it's a good idea to make sure this information is accurate before semester begin. Now here you will find the financial aid section where you can review your financial aid package by academic year. You can see your current awards, view future aid as they become available, and even looks at previous years. You can compare what received over time. Think about One.UF as your student dashboard. Okay, so now let's move on. So when you click the financial aid section, you will see a summary page that gives you an overview of the financial aid information. At the top, you will find the sub status, all right, which stand of satisfactory academic progress that we discussed, and you will see if you're meeting SAP. Below, you will see the cost of attendance. It is important that you take a look on your cost of attendance because remember that is an estimate of the amount of money that you'll pay to attend UF for one academic year. The key takeaway is this. This page provides you a snapshot of your financial aid eligibility and educational budget. It helps you understand both the resources available to you and the estimated costs associated with attending UF. Right below the sub status, you will see a section called Summary of Federal Aid and Cost of Attendance. In this example, show both the fall and spring semester. So one thing to remember is all this is an estimate. You will notice a number that is the number. Those numbers can change. And for example, after the dropout period, your cost of attendance may be adjusted if you're taking more or fewer credit hours. Think about this section like the financial aid roadmap for the year. It gives you an estimate of your educational cost and help you understand how your financial aid fits into that picture. And right below the cost of attendance, you will find the actual financial aid package. On this part, you will see your financial aid, and if you're eligible for federal loans, then that part of the website, that's where you need to take action. For most students, you will see your award organized by term. For example, your fall and spring aid will be appear in the corresponding column of those semesters. Think about this part of the One.UF website as a financial aid snapshot. It shows you the resource available to you. And at the bottom, you will see the section called Self-Reported Additional Aid. Remember, if you receive additional financial aid, report it. That'll help you adjust if there's any necessary adjustment to make sure you receive financial aid up to the amount that you're eligible. Now that we talk about One.UF, let's take a moment to scan those QR codes. Those are the resources available to you. The first one is the studentaid.gov, where you complete the FAFSA and parents can apply for a Parent Plus loan. Any question about the FAFSA and application, you can find it here. On this link is the firststudentaid.sg.org. Any information about Bright Futures and any state program, just reach out to this website. Below that, there's our website, the Office of Student Financial Aid and Scholarship website, sfa.ufo.edu. Mostly all the information we talk about, you can find it here. In addition, you will find information about financial literacy. And at the end, this is the scholarship search engine where you can find different outside UF awarded and private scholarships. If you ever have questions or need assistance, you're not alone in this process. The One Stop team is here to help. Whether you prefer to call, meet by Zoom, or visit in person, we are available to support you throughout your time at UF. As you see here, One Stop is open Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 to 5, and Wednesday from 9 to 5. As we come to the end of this presentation, I want you to leave with a few final thoughts. The most important thing you can do is stay engaged with your financial aid. Check your One.UF account regularly. Review your to-do list. Read your UF email. And complete any requirement as soon as possible. Staying on top of your financial aid can help you avoid delays, unexpected charge, and last-minute surprise. Financial aid is not something to be afraid of. It's all about options, planning, and opportunity. Financial aid open doors, remove barriers, and help you move forward toward your goals. As you begin your journey at UF, please take advantage of the resources available to you. Complete your FAFSA every year, apply for a scholarship, even the small one, borrow money wisely, and only what you truly need. The UF One Stop and the Office of Student Financial Aid and Scholarship are here to answer your question. And remember, big dreams deserve big support. And here at the University of Florida, we're committed to help you every step of the way. Thank you very much for your attention. And one more time, welcome to Gator Nation.